This is the BiggerPockets Podcast, show 185.
You're listening to BiggerPockets Radio, simplifying real estate for investors large and small. If you're here looking to learn about real estate investing without all the hype, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and be sure to join the millions of others who have benefited from BiggerPockets.com, your home for real estate investing online.
What's going on, everybody? This is Josh Dorkin, host of the BiggerPockets Podcast, here with my co-host, Brandon Turner.
Hey, how's it going, Josh?
What's going on, Big Poppy?
Not a whole lot, you know. I went for my first walk yesterday with my new little girl, like on a stroller and everything. She screamed the whole time.
Wow.
We turned around and just held her the whole walk back.
So you were that guy that annoyed all the neighbors. Nicely
yeah, exactly.
done.
Yeah, you know, I try.
Nicely done.
What about you? What's up?
What's
up? What is up, Joshua?
You know, all's well. We've seen a couple movies lately with the kids, some fun family movies, the BFG and The Life of Dogs, which I loved. I thought it was amazing.
Nice.
Got the house to myself for a couple days. Wife and kids are off to the in-laws. So, you know, just
party at Josh's tonight. I'm putting the word out.
Bachelor life.
Party at Josh's tonight.
Yeah.
Kegger.
Yeah.
BYO.
I'm located at XYZ Street in Montesano, Washington.
Yeah, I'll send them all here. All right. Well.
Yeah. All's well, man.
No one cares about your party, so no one's going to come. Sorry.
Okay, fine. Break my heart. Yeah. So we got a cool show.
Today's a cool show.
Yeah, we're tackling a topic we haven't done in a long time.
Yeah, we're talking about lease options or rent to own a little bit, and kind of a cool strategy, especially if you're a newer investor. This can be a really, really good strategy for getting involved, getting started, getting some really good cash flow and some good equity at the end. So you guys will love that. So stay tuned for that.
Awesome. Well, before we get into the show, why don't we do today's
quick
tip? Yeah. Love it.
All right, a lot of enthusiasm there.
Yeah, it was. I'm sorry to everybody for that.
Yeah,
no,
sorry.
I'm not. No. All right, guys. Today's quick tip is check out our YouTube channel and subscribe to it. You can go to youtube.com/biggerpockets or biggerpockets.com/YouTube. Either one is going to take you to the same place, and go check it out and hit the big subscribe button. We've got, hundreds of videos on there, and we're
422 to be exact.
We do. And we're putting out new videos every week. So definitely subscribe so you can see what is to come.
Yeah. I actually just put a video there yesterday called a few days ago, the 5 ways I bought my latest 5 properties. So if you want to know the 5 different ways that I bought my 5 different properties, check it out.
Subscribe today.
All right. And now let's get to the show. You want to introduce today's guest?
I do. This is show 185 of the BiggerPockets Podcast. You can check out the show notes at biggerpockets.com/show185. And otherwise, guys, obviously you're probably listening to the show somewhere not on our page. Most people don't listen on the page. They listen through some kind of application like iTunes. So if you are doing that, please take a minute and leave us a rating and review on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever else it is that you are listening. That would be very good and helpful for us. Let's get to this thing. Today's guest is William, a.k.a. Bill Powers. Bill's a real estate investor. He's been in the game for about 5 years now and is building a very successful rent-to-own business.
Over 70 properties in 5 years. It's pretty
legit.
Great. Pretty legit.
He's got a nice portfolio, building a nice business, and he's all around really good guy. So Great show. Very, very good stuff. Great for newbies. Lots to learn for everybody. Lots of good strategies for experienced people as well. So tune in and let's bring him on. Bill, welcome to the show, man. It's good to have you here.
Thanks, Josh.
So let's start at the very beginning of your story today and talk about how you got started in the real estate world, because you weren't doing real estate for long. I mean, you haven't been in this game for 50 years, right?
No.
All right, so tell us
he's not even 50 years old.
He's not even 50 years old yet. I know. I'm not going to make fun of his age like I do other guests.
Thank you. Actually, 51, but yeah.
Oh, look at that. Yeah. Wow. Okay, so how long have you been in this game? When did you get started? What did that look like?
Sure. So in about it was 2010. I was just exiting a printing company, and I'll back up from that. In 2007, my wife actually asked me after When I was looking for something else to do from a moving out of a career position, she said, well, why don't we buy a house? And I said, no, I don't want to buy any houses. That's not for me. So I decided to invest in a printing company, and for 3 years did that. And in 2010, exited that business in kind of an uninvited way. So yeah, I got canned. And so
I like how you spun it.
Exit it.
I exited the company.
Yeah. No spin.
No, I exited in an uninvited way.
Which was the biggest favor they could have done for me. It was
Nice.
I was a partner in a label company. So you started to look for something to do, and real estate looked like a good opportunity. So bought our first house, and as many people do, you make all the mistakes on that first house, right? We bought it for too much. We took too long rehabbing it. We rented it to the wrong person, all those mistakes, and got those out of the way, and then started buying heavy in 2011, looking at the numbers, and we just purely looked at cash flow from the beginning. And the cash flow numbers worked. I'm kind of a numbers guy. So that's what we did, and invested in our local town here.
And where is that?
Where are you? Yeah.
So yeah, we're in north of Chicago. We're in Lake County, Illinois.
Okay.
And our office is in a town called Waukegan, which is a C+, B- community, working class, largely Hispanic. And we've invested largely here and in the surrounding towns.
Awesome. Yeah, we were just in Chicago a couple of weeks ago, Brandon and I. Great town.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't quite make it to Waukegan. There was nothing really pulling us there.
No,
but,
there probably wouldn't be. We got a nice lakefront here, and we're trying to redevelop that. But other than that, it's just your basic blue collar town.
Right on.
Yeah.
So you saw real estate as an opportunity. You went, you bought that first house. I'm assuming you bought that first house as an investment house, right? You're not talking about like a home to live in, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Right.
so tell us about that first house and how did that kind of go about? You said you made all those mistakes, so people love hearing how people screw up.
Yeah.
Tell us the story.
Talked to a couple local investors and introduced me to a real estate agent, and he said, "Yeah, I got the perfect REO for you." We went and bought it off the MLS, the numbers look good. We were from the get-go. We decided we were going to rent it, of course, and that's really where the majority of our business has been focused. And I was at the time working with a partner who was in the construction business, and he was a union carpenter. And we rehabbed the house slowly because he was working full time, and I was doing this full time at that point because it was my start of my new career. And so it was rented it to the wrong person. Got weekly rent payments instead of monthly. Just all the mistakes.
In cash?
Some cash, some check, whenever we could get it. Just didn't have the right processes or procedures in place to begin with. But then you start to make it a business. I've had a couple businesses that I've run in the past. And so we just started to look at it more as a business and grew it from there.
So the wrong person, how did that happen, and how does somebody avoid doing what you did?
We put out a yard sign, which to this day is still the way that we get most of our leads, although we use a lot of, Zillow, rent.com, Trulia type of, free stuff out there. But didn't screen him the correct way, right? Didn't ask for employment verification and, all the things that you really need to do. That's kind of typical in our business now. Our standard procedure is those credit applications and employment verifications and, background checks and criminal checks and all those things that you really need to do with some type of service out there.
What you're saying is if somebody's going to do a proper job of screening a tenant, they've got to do the employment verification, the credit, the background, criminal, not just say they're going to do it, but actually go through the process and verify and validate all that stuff. What else do you check on tenants these days?
We get a full report that costs us $30 per person, and it gives us credit scores, gives us just everything, complete debt profile, every single debt that they have. Whether there's any evictions or credit actions against them. So, we have a full picture because our company, what we do is we do rent to own homes. So we really have to follow the Frank Dodd guidelines of really being a company that checks you A to Z. We have to follow that 43% debt load ratio for all of our clients because they're doing a rent to own program.
Okay, we need to dig on that because that's
we'll climb into that for sure.
So I wrote down some notes. We'll cover rent to own, Frank Dodd, and 43% here in a minute. Just out of curiosity, though, while we're on the topic, who do you use for your screening stuff?
Boy, yeah, I knew you were going to ask me that. My office manager does it. But
that's fine.
Don't worry about it.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Okay, we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, look at you. You got this down. All right, so you got that first deal. So you said Waukegan, I think it was.
Well, actually, our first one was in a town called Mundelein, but then I quickly learned that rents were similar, and you have to look at this as an investor. Where rents are highest and acquisition of capital is lowest, that's where we focused, and Waukegan was that town. Mundelein is a good town for appreciation in our area, but Waukegan is really the cash flow king.
So what are we talking about in terms of purchase price, and what are we talking about in terms of rents?
Sure. So I'll use that first one. Bought it for $84, put about $15 into it, and rented it for $1,300. Now today that property is worth about $160, and we rent it for $1,600. But the real cash flow opportunities came more in our local area around here, which acquisition back in the day was $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 at the high end. Rehabs are typically about $25,000. We do everything A to Z, from mechanicals to windows to, if a roof is necessary. Kitchens and bathrooms are largely what we focus on too, and we rent on average for about $1,400.
Oh wow!
Gotcha. So we try to focus on a net cash flow on a monthly basis of about $600 a month after debt payments, which we do all of our debt on a 15-year 5%. Formula. That's what our local banks either give us in fixed rate, or we elect 15-year mortgages for even if it's a balloon.
Right on. So let me transition this a little bit. So you built that first property. Now you've got a full-fledged business that you're running and you're working with other investors on, and we'll kind of get there. How did you transition from you said I think it was 2011 you started buying heavy, North Chicago. What did that look like? You went from that one house to how many did you do the next year?
Right. So February of 11, I bought half a dozen in February and March, that time frame. And then our bank, our local credit union that we've been with for 20 years, came to us and offered the opportunity to put some debt on the properties. So we debted out those properties for 80% of what we invested in them. And we took that roughly $250,000 and turned it over again. And it was portfolio loans from local credit unions and banks that have really driven all of our success in our business.
So did you paid cash for those properties and then?
Correct.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So you put debt on it, you took money out, and then just kept kind of rinse and repeat the process. Yeah.
Right. And we do them in bundles of 5. We did them in bundles of 5 at a time. We have friends and clients who do them 1 at a time or 3 at a time. They'll take those packages to the local banks and they'll cross-collateralize them and provide them new equity to invest.
Got it.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. So I want to go back then or move forward and talk about this rent-to-own thing, because it's something that we haven't covered very much on the show. It's something that I'm a fan of. I'm doing a lease option right now, and I like the concept of rent-to-own. So let's talk about, for those people who have no idea what we're even talking about, what does that mean? What does your business structure look like in that regard? Like, how does that work?
Sure. So what we do on a universal basis, that's every single home we approach the same way, and that is that we offer it on a rent-to-own basis. So when we have a prospect that comes in the door, they know that because of our signs and because of our website that our homes are rent-to-own. And what that means is that $150 of your rent every month goes towards a predetermined purchase price on the home. So we set a strike price before a resident moves into the property, and they know what they can buy the house for in 3 years. All of our leases are 3 years long, right? So they have time to sort out credit issues. They have time to acquire additional down payment money if they need it, but most of the time they don't, because the monies they're accumulating from the rent-to-own program are enough for them to qualify or use for an FHA loan. We also require from all of our residents first month's rent and last month's rent, as well as first month. So they have those pockets of money to draw from when they're executing their contracts.
Okay, so can you walk us through a hypothetical or a real life, doesn't matter. Like, I mean, you buy it for what, you put what into it, you option it for what, or, do a rent to own for how much, and how does that all work?
Yeah, very different today than it was 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
I'll take 3 years ago, buy it for 30 or 40, put 25 on average into it, and then we put a rent-to-own price on it, which is largely based on a current appraisal, which would be in the 100, 110, 120 type of range. Now we've started to bump those up because the last thing we thought would happen in our market is significant appreciation, and voila, right? Everybody's seen it.
Bonus.
Our prices, huh?
It's a bonus.
It's a huge bonus. Yeah, when you base your business solely on cash flow and you get those appreciation numbers that have been staggering in our market. Average purchase price of a house in 2012 was $52,000 in our market. Now it's $110,000.
Wow!
So it's just exploded. And so after 3 years, we adjust those purchase prices if they haven't executed their option, or when a new resident moves in, we make it more market specific or more price specific to the current market. But a lot of the homes that we've sold lately, I wish we sold them for $20,000 more, but the price that we set on them was $99,000, and that's the price that they bought the house for, which it was worth 120 or 130. So good for them, right?
So it's to the advantage of a buyer to get into a rent-to-own on a appreciating market if they can get so lucky as to lock in a low option price.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, and so that was 3 years ago. Now what about today?
So today, a typical purchase might be $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 with similar rehab. And now the properties are falling out of what I call formula. What you call the 2% rule, we call the $200 for every $10,000 invested, right? $200 in rent on a monthly basis for every 10 grand that you've spent. So if it's 60 grand that we spend on a home, we want to get 1,200. If we spend 70, we want to get 14. If we spend 80, we want to get 1,600. That's kind of our formula. And it's hard to stay in formula now, but we do still find deals like that. We buy directly from banks where we have those opportunities. We actually work with a local nonprofit now where we buy houses before they go on the First Look program. If you're familiar with the First Look program, where
Can you
only
explain that?
Sure. So the First Look program is available only to owner occupants through Fannie Mae, right? And Fannie provides you the opportunity, if you're going to live in the home, to buy it at a certain price before it's opened up to us investors. What we've started to do is partner with a local nonprofit where they can actually buy the homes before they go on the First Look program and sell them to vetted contractors in the area who will rehab the houses and either rent them out at a high level or they'll flip them. And it's the program is called the National Community Stabilization Trust. I would suggest investors all over the country look into a nonprofit that partners with the NCST, because it's a great source for distressed property.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. I'd never heard that before, so that's cool.
But by the way, your 200 per 10,000 is semantics. It's the 2% rule.
Exactly. Right. No, that's what when I started getting on Bigger Pockets 2 years ago or so, I was like, wow, that's exactly what I'm doing.
That's funny. Yeah. That's funny. Now, a lot of let's talk about that real quick before we get into where I want to go Dodd-Frank a little bit. So, the 2% rule. I hear people all the time, and they say this to me. I probably get an email a day that says this. I can't find 2% deals in my area.
Should I 1% in a lot of areas?
Should I not? Should I not invest? I should quit. I should give up. Like, what do you say to those people?
I say that there's different types of investments out there. I've started to go to markets that are more appreciation based. So I'm 1% or sub 1% on a few investments, but I know that the appreciation value on those or opportunity is greater than my cash flow properties that I have in C+ areas. So yeah.
let me just call you out there really quickly.
Yep.
You said, the opportunity is greater. Now, for the listener, he didn't say he knows he's going to get appreciation. He's just saying he knows the opportunity is greater. I think it's really important, especially for new investors, to point that out, because you get a lot of people who are like, "Oh, I'm buying here because I know it's going to appreciate." Can you make that distinction and explain, particularly to a newer investor, why that's not the case and what they need to be thinking about?
Sure. It's quality of schools, right? So the cash flow opportunities that we have lower quality schools in Waukegan and Beach Park than they do in a town like Libertyville or Mundelein or local communities.
They sound like Simpson towns.
That's I guess so. It's Lake County. So so better schools relate to what I say or what I envision as a better opportunity for appreciation in the long term, and it's proven itself out over the last couple of years. But some of these towns are building little downtown areas for shopping and restaurants, and the schools drive it a lot too. And the tear downs that you see constantly in those communities too are an indicator that, hey, there should be some future appreciation. But we always buy properties with what I call IE, right? Instant equity. Instant equity is something that you've got to have, whether it's a cash flow property or whether it's something that you're looking at as an appreciation play long term.
Yeah.
A minimum $30,000-$40,000. You target 50, but sometimes you don't get there. But on the appreciation plays, we look for instant equity of $75,000 to $100,000 plus that we could sell it for right now if we wanted to, with that buffer in it. And but keep it as a rental, and hopefully it goes up long term.
But you focus, and again, you focus on cash flow. You look for the instant appreciation. Again, to the newer investor, a lot of them are tempted by appreciation. Hey, I it looks like this is a hot market. Such and such is hot. Denver, for example. Right. It's crazy. Oh my God, Denver's appreciated 100% or 20% in 3 years or 2 years or 2 months, as it probably stands. But and so they get excited and they're like, oh, I'm going to start buying in Denver because it's going to keep going. Mm-hmm. You tell them, no. You need to look for other fundamentals in there, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, it's not just about betting on the come, right? I mean, you can't just hope.
That was a gambling term, right?
Exactly, right. You play craps?
I do.
You play craps? No. Neither do I.
I don't.
But you can't hope that that's going to happen just solely. I mean, the property's got to support itself with minimal cash flow. Some of our properties in A+ areas, I'll call them, they have cash flow of a couple $100 a month. They're still supporting themselves, but they're not the big cash flow properties that we have in C+ areas like Waukegan that you make $600. Right?
But it's supported by that cash flow, because I know a lot of people. It's just a lot of people will go and buy properties and say, hey, I'm going to buy these properties because I know it's going to go up, and it's okay if I buy it and I'm at a loss of $200, $300, $500, $1,000 a month. I'll eat that because I know in 5 years this thing's going to be worth 10x that, and so. I personally, I say that's crazy. That's just me. I mean, everybody's entitled to their own way of running their business. I could never do that, but it just.
And to give you some understanding of my portfolio, I have 5 properties in the appreciation areas.
Yeah,
I have over 70 in the cash flow. So I had to have the cash flow first in order to look at those higher end investments.
Yep.
And invest in those areas, because otherwise I just couldn't sustain a business on that.
And I think that's a big part is where are you at in your investing, right?
And so what's your mix?
Yeah, what are you trying to do? I mean, I think about when I first started, my goal was to quit my crappy job at a bank. And so I didn't want the job, so I was buying cash flowing properties. I had no money. I was just trying to acquire what I could. But today, is adding one house that gives me $100 a month in cash flow going to do that much for me? So now today I'll play a little bit more of the appreciation game. I'll buy a nice house. I'm not going to buy a bad deal, but I'll expand and I'll buy some in the nicer areas, hoping that it goes up in value because I can support that today better than I could before. So just where are you at today versus, yeah.
To that, I mean, it's a good question though. Where's the line, right? I mean, if it loses $100 a month, is that okay? Well, for somebody, further in their career, further in their portfolio, in their mix, maybe that makes sense because it's supported by all the other properties. But particularly for somebody new, I mean, you don't want to be looking at that.
Right.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. And even with all the debt coverage ratio overages that we have and the large cash flow that we do have off of our strong properties in our portfolio, it's still not, because we do everything on 15-year mortgages, it's still not this massive amount of cash that's available at the end of the month. And if they were tight, they would turn out like a lot of people did in 07, 08, 09, investing in properties in that time frame. So,
hey, you had mentioned the 15%, 15 years, not 15%. Mm-hmm. Why have you guys elected to go with 15-year terms versus 30-year?
I think one of the things that
20.
Or 20 or 25, which have been offered to us. I think it keeps us financially responsible. So it keeps us focused on making sure that the profitability in the business is there, and we're using it to pay down our debt. At this point in my business, we've looked at refining some of our properties so that we can use some of that cash to do more things like flips and maybe even invest in more rental properties, even though the prices are getting to a point that they don't hit formula. It was just what we did in the beginning to really keep ourselves on track.
Right on. All right, so as we often do, we went off track there a little bit. So let's rein it back in. You were giving an example. You were talking about the current property types. So
sure.
On a rent to own, so you guys, you purchase a property, right?
Yep.
How does the tenant buyer kind of fit in? How does all that kind of work out?
So we find a property that we think is a good investment from a cash flow standpoint. And then we rehab it with one of a half a dozen sub crews that we work with on a consistent basis. Get the property rehabbed, and then we put it out onto the market. We set our strike price, Josh, at a price that's about what the appraisal value would be if we went to go sell it.
Okay.
It's not always 100%. It might be a little under, might be a little over. It always depends on the appraiser, right? But that's where we set our price, and then we put our properties out on Zillow, which infiltrates everything out there. It's free. It's a great way to market your properties, and then we do it through yard signs, and a lot of it's word of mouth now. So we have enough clients out there, enough residents that talk about us. We do annual resident events, so we invite them to come to a session on credit repair, or there's mortgage brokers that they can work with to find out what the best opportunities are for grant programs. I'm involved with a nonprofit that's called the Affordable Housing Corporation, and they provide grants, assistance, education to learn how to buy homes, learn how to work through foreclosure, or then they also rehab blighted properties. But that's how it works. Is we find that client who's interested in actually owning. We don't want people who are interested in just renting. That we want people who want to own a home. And unfortunately, we're not getting as many people to the finish line as we'd like to. I was just at the Single Family Home Investors Conference in May down in Miami, and they talked about some of the folks that are doing what we're doing on a much bigger scale. Talked about the fulfillment rates or the completion rates on rent-to-own programs, and they're terribly low at 6-8%. Ours is in that range, unfortunately, too. Even though we try to do this education and get people to the finish line and give them longer-term leases to get them there. So
yeah,
why do you think that they're not fulfilling their lease options?
Some of it's that they're afraid of it. Some of it's they just never get their credit in a position that it's ready to do what they need it to do. I think it's a variety of things that just people aren't motivated to own a home. But when you find those people that are, they really are motivated. They know that it's a good deal, that they can buy a house for 100 grand or 120 grand, and they can, an example I use is one that we sold a couple months ago. The lease payment was in the 1300s, when his mortgage payment turned out to be $806, and he came to the table with $200. After being in our program, it was great. It was great to see him, buy a house and get to that point of home ownership. And in our town, there's about 50% rental, 50% ownership. My wife grew up here, so it was one of the things that we said, hey, we want to help the town along with making money, and we're going down that road. How does
somebody find tenants? I know you said you just put it up on Zillow or somewhere else, but what I guess what's the difference between in the mentality of somebody who is going to rent to own versus buy a house versus just straight rent? Is the rent to own? It's a definitive persona. It's somebody who strives to own but can't just own outright. Isn't that right?
Yeah, they're in a position where either their credit is not ready, their income, there's a lot of requirements above and beyond your income, right? Income is that 43% debt load ratio. We always qualify candidates with, if you don't make 3 times your rent, then you're not gonna be a good fit for our program. So that it doesn't get them in a they're house poor type of situation where they're spending 50% of their income on a house, right? We work with a lot of people who are coming out of foreclosures, coming out of short sales, even sometimes coming out of bankruptcies, but they have good jobs and they can be homeowners again someday, just not today.
So you mentioned the 43% debt thing. You said that earlier too, and I wanted to touch on that. Is that maybe we need to step back for a bit and talk about Dodd-Frank. So of course you're not a lawyer, not giving legal advice and all that, but can you explain what is Dodd-Frank and how is it affecting people who do lease options? Because it's very different today than it was 10 years ago before Dodd-Frank. And people get in trouble over doing lease options the wrong way. So what can you talk to about that?
Yeah, in 2014, obviously, it went into effect where you have to qualify. Somebody who's doing a rent-to-own program or a lease option has to qualify under the same guidelines that they're doing a mortgage. Now, even if they don't have the credit score, they can still do the program. You're just working with them to move them down that road of home ownership. And, you have to do a lot more analysis on a renter or resident than you would normally, but that's kind of the direction that we've gone to make sure that people are going to be in a financial position to actually buy the house at the end if they elect to do so.
Okay. Yep. So Dodd-Frank is basically just telling people, who do owner financing or who do lease options, then don't take advantage of people. You can't just, because lease options have had a bad name, and rightfully so, over the years. What a lot of investors will do, just for those people who don't know, they will say, hey, tenant buyer who obviously will never qualify for this house, you just come up with a $20,000 down payment and we'll put you in a 6-month lease option here, and if you don't get it, you lose the entire option fee. Right. And then nobody ever fulfills it. They lose that big upfront fee, their hopes are dashed, and you just put them in a worse financial position. So how does your company go outside that?
Yeah, so we don't require any down payments. We just do, you have to come up with your first month's rent, your last month's rent, and your security deposit.
Okay.
And all of those monies go towards the purchase.
I love that.
I really like that.
And it's $150 per month of your rent goes towards the buy as well. And we make that, we allow that to roll over. So let's say you lease from us for 3 years, you're still not ready to buy, and you want to re-up. You don't lose that money, that $5,400 that you accumulated over the course of your 3 years. So we let people, keep those funds moving towards an ownership position. Okay.
Is there any point in which they do forfeit those funds?
If they move out.
Okay.
Right. If they move out. We also allow them to transfer. So if we have a new house come on the market, right, a new rehab, and they go, we really want to move to this house because it's bigger, our family situation has changed, that money moves with them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it really is much more flexible than a lot of these. I've heard the predatory programs of,
Yep.
yeah, right. You put 20 grand down or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and they have no time to correct their credit. And
This sounds very, very reasonable, and I definitively respect you for that. I think that's fantastic. And for everybody listening, Dodd-Frank, Chris Dodd and Barney Frank, it was a law that those wonderful politicians, and I say wonderful with politicians facetiously, obviously, but put together. But I do think for this purpose, it does good things.
They're trying to do the right thing, I think.
Yeah.
Whether or not the whole law is,
correct. But it pulls out, that predatory function. There's still, I think, the capacity for people to be predatory with large down payments and things. But
yeah. So what about repairs in the middle of the property? Do they do their own repairs? Do you do the repairs? Is there a certain amount? How's that work?
What we stipulate in our agreement is that they're responsible for the first $300.
Okay.
We'll take care of anything that's major for our residents, like roofs and appliances, hot water heater, HVAC, things like that. But we ask them to act more like homeowners and less like tenants who call up and ask for every last little thing.
Do you guys do a full overhaul before somebody moves in? Correct. I mean, you're not like just taking something with a dilapidated roof or HVAC systems that's screwy and putting them in it.
No, absolutely not. No, we've gone to the point now where a lot of our rental properties have granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, new HVAC systems, roofs, windows. It's a complete overhaul. So it's basically a new home.
Right on.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, I mean, again, I've always loved the lease option because of that. The benefit of you can get the tenant to pay a little bit of the amount. You can potentially avoid having to use a real estate agent to sell the property because you're selling it directly. I mean, there's just a lot of benefits to using it. One thing that a lot of people aren't aware of that I was not aware of, and I'm assuming you are, but I'll say it anyway. So when you have a mortgage existing on a property, let's say my own personal house right here where I live, I have a mortgage on my house right now. And if I were to go and sell it to somebody else and not pay off the loan, we would trigger the due on sale clause and the bank could foreclose, right? So that's just a common thing in real estate. You can't really, people do it anyway with subject to, but anyway, that's another topic. Anyways, what I'm getting to is a lot of mortgages actually have the words lease option written in there as well. So like my personal house, I looked at my mortgage and it says, if I do a lease option to somebody, the bank could foreclose on me. And now I've never heard of a bank foreclosing on somebody doing a lease option, but it was in my mortgage for my house that I bought last year or 2 years ago. And anyway, just something for people to consider. If you're going to do it, just make sure you're not violating the due on sale clause. And if you are violating the due on sale clause, make sure you know that you are, so you kind of have know what you're getting into.
How about this? Make sure you talk to a lawyer before you go and do lease options. That's
absolutely
probably the best.
Probably
thing.
Good advice.
Don't listen to us. Don't listen to
turn it off right now. Don't listen to us.
BiggerPockets.
Turn it off.
Don't listen to the forums. Go talk to a lawyer. I mean, you should listen to us to learn all this stuff, but at the end of the day, you want your lawyer to sign off.
Yep.
Yeah. Every state's different. You need to talk to a lot of people and do it the right way.
There you go. Very cool. Well, hey, but let's get kind of wrap up this little section of the show. We're going to move on to the fire round here in just a second. Before we do, I do want to ask just a couple final quick questions. Where are you headed next? Oh, okay. Well, I was going to say, where are you headed next? What's your business doing?
You just cut me off.
Where are you going?
Sure.
Was that your question?
Co-host, God. Co-host.
We started to do flips a couple of years ago, and I'll, like you guys always reference, that's my day job.
Yep.
My rentals is my long-term investment. So we do those for clients, which our clients are all friends and family. I've used financing companies to do flips in the past, but I like to do them in a more of a client investor type of relationship rather than just on my own with a financing company. So that's part of our business too. We do about 10 flips a year and been fairly successful in that.
Okay.
And now we add about 40 rental properties to our portfolios a year. And by portfolios, I mean, again, friends and family who I've gotten into this business. They wanted an alternative way to invest their dollars. So we build portfolios for other people now.
That's awesome.
And it works well. It fixes up a lot of the blighted houses in the area. The more deeply distressed we say, the better. And it really does. It helps them with alternative investment. It makes a really good return and helps the community. So that's what we do.
So that's the turnkey, quote unquote, right? That's the turnkey business. So you're doing that only with friends and family.
We do, right?
Got it.
And it's different than the turnkey that a lot of folks reference in, like when I went down to Miami for the single family home investors conference, they talked about buying them, fixing them, and then selling the cash flow piece to investors. And that cash flow was 8, 10, 12%. We actually, we have our clients actually buy the house from the beginning. We rehab it, or they rehab it with their money. And so there's much less in it for me, but enough that we sustain our business and grow and put them into a good investment. So but there's a lot more money out in turnkey than with the way we do it right now. So.
Yeah. So where are you going? I mean, I know Brandon kind of asked this, but like with your own personal portfolio, what's the goal? I mean, are you, do you want to have thousands of houses? Where do you want to go? When's enough? When do you kind of slow down, stop, put on the brakes, stop flipping, stop buying? Yeah.
I mean, I think you can always flip, right? I think there's spread on properties out there all the time. So that's what we'll continue to do too. Now, rentals, we've slowed down. We've actually stopped for now with our own personal portfolio. We're adding them for other folks. But for ourselves, my wife and I, we've stopped buying them just because we want to focus on the flip and the larger income that provides us, and the size of our portfolio is big enough that we're comfortable with it right now. And one thing I'd say to viewers too, flips are very enticing, right? There's a lot of money to be made. It's immediate and everything else, but there's ways to lose money on flips even when you make money, because opportunity cost is a big factor in that.
What do you mean rentals,
by that? Yeah, I want to hear more.
Yeah, rentals. I view rentals long term as more profitable than a flip that you might even make $50,000 or $100,000 on right now, right? So you do a flip, and it takes time, it takes resources, it takes all those things that are necessary to do a flip or a rental. But when you're focusing on flips, you're foregoing the opportunity to invest in those rental portfolios that long term are, they're gold. They're absolute gold. So
fair enough.
So don't be enticed completely by the flip side of things. Look long term.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, and so just let everyone know also there is a webinar this coming week. If you're interested in buying more rental properties or buying your first rental property, we're doing a webinar specifically on that topic on Wednesday. So hopefully you guys can make it. Come to biggerpockets.com/webinar to sign up for the webinar called How to Buy Your First or Next Rental Property in 90 Days or Less. Should be a lot of fun. So we'll do that. But before we go to the fire round, I have one last question. And I don't know, but Josh probably does too, because he's always got stupid questions at the end.
Oh, wow.
Just kidding.
Really?
All right. How many hours a week do you work?
Too many.
Okay. More than 40?
I probably work 60 hours a week, but I'm trying to back that off and play a little more golf and travel a little bit more. So, but
work hard, but you love what you do.
I do. I don't look at it as work. It's time away from family sometimes, but it's fun. I'm having fun with what I'm doing because it's really rewarding.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's fantastic. And it doesn't sound like you're in an opportunity where you'll be exiting your job against your will.
No.
So,
all right,
Josh, you got control of your destiny. I love it.
You do.
I think it's awesome. Awesome. No, I'm good. I'm ready.
Question?
Thank
no
you
good
very
questions?
much. Yeah. Why don't we move on
sure?
to the fire round? No, I've asked all my good questions. I've got plenty of others I could always ask, but we'll let the listener.
Are you hurt? Are you hurt?
I'm never. You can't hurt me. As big and as ugly as you are, you have no way. You can't hurt me. I'm a stone wall here. You can't damage me, Brandon.
Okay, well, let Josh, let me try. Okay. Right, so when I was
Bill, let me ask myself this question.
It sounds like he's got a story. Do you have a story, Bill?
Oh, I do want to hear the story. We love stories.
Okay, so when I was young, so my two sisters and I, we'd made fun of each other a lot, and one of the things we'd say to each other when the other one was being kind of a dork is they'd go, "Well, you're dorking. You're dorking."
Yeah.
So the first time I heard your name, Josh, I was like, God, that's exactly what I said to my sister all the time, Dorkin. So I just thought it was funny,
That's awesome.
That brings me great pleasure, Bill, and I appreciate it. And of course, I still have grown people who will walk up to me and be like, your name is Dorkin. I'm like, what are you, a child? I mean, like, my goodness.
I think I still make fun of you for that. But I am a child.
Obviously,
so
you are
okay.
a child.
It's all right.
A little bit, right? Yeah. I think we all are. Right?
I got to be a little bit of a child, but
we do.
Brandon's just Anyway, can we move on? Because
Let's move on. All right, time to get violent in the world famous fire round.
It's time for the fire round.
Now let's get to the fire round. These questions come direct out of the BiggerPockets forums, which our users can jump into it and interact on by going to biggerpockets.com/forums. And guess what? It's free. All right, question number 1 of the fire round. Do you use any specific formulas when you're thinking about investing in a market? Like, what do you look for? We already talked about 2% rule. Is that the only formula you use, or is there anything else?
2% rule, and when we're looking at a flip, we try to target a minimum gross spread of $80,000 and a minimum net spread of $40,000. So we try to target those two numbers on flips, but on rentals, it's basically the 2% rule that we guides us.
Can you explain the 80 and 40 thing real quick with the flips a little bit? Like, give us an example of what you mean.
Right. So if we're gonna, I bought a house this morning on a sheriff's sale that I think is a 130 house. Okay. We bought it for $50,000. So now I've got back taxes to pay on it, because when you buy a house at a sheriff's sale, they don't take care of the usually the current or previous year tax liabilities like they would on a MLS purchase. And then the estimated rehab, the selling costs, and everything else, we think that it'll come in somewhere around $40,000 on the net, and it was an $80,000 spread gross from buy to sell.
Right on.
Yep.
And a sheriff's sale is an auction, correct?
Right. Public. It's a public auction process here in Illinois and Lake County in general. They go through what's called the sheriff's sale process here in Lake County, and that's where we buy some of our properties along with Bank Direct or wherever. But back to that spread, it's $80,000 is what we try to target on the lower end. As the price point goes up, we try to get more gross dollars in that differential between buy and sell.
Awesome. All right. Cool. So next question. Thank you for that little bit of information. Should people invest in distressed properties in areas where they don't live, or is it too hard to get properties remodeled? So if you're kind of on your own, does that make sense to go and invest at a long distance in properties?
For me, it doesn't. I know for a lot of investors that might work. I've tried it once, and it's very, very challenging because I like to put my stamp on the property of being involved in the process. It's the main thing that I do at our business here. I handle the development or the purchase and development of the properties. So it doesn't work for me. I did it down in Sarasota, Florida. I had to bring my crews down there to rehab the property. They drove down there twice, come back. It's a laborious process for me to try to process something like that, along with finding quality contractors in the area that you can rely on, and they can do the quality and complete things in the time frame that you want them to. So, but I know it works for some people. Just not for me.
Right on. Hey, really quick, and I know this is not fire round. I knew I was missing something. How big is your team today, by the way?
So we stay small, right? We office manager, accounting manager, maintenance manager is what we run our little 160 properties that we I won't say I manage them, because we have a management company that does all the back office work of collecting the rents and all the pieces that a managing broker can do. They do it remotely. They do it all over the country. It's a nice little way for us to alleviate the way that we or the work that we have to do internally. So that's how we stay small.
Right on. And apologies to the listener. Apparently somebody's house just got buzzed by some kind of airplane.
Was that me?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't think it was me.
It was pretty loud.
Okay, didn't hear that one. All right.
I don't know. Weird. Whatever. All right. Next question. Where's the best place to get a loan? A bank or a credit union? Or does it matter?
Yeah, we use both, but we use small banks and credit unions. We look for banks or credit unions that are doing portfolio loans. God bless you. Portfolio loans.
Sneezing over there.
We use banks. We use both.
Okay.
The key for us is to try to find money below 5%, 5% or below, and the portfolio loans that we get locally, we're mostly with banks right now. Although in the past we've been mostly with credit unions, so it just depends on rates and their ability to take on what size loans we're looking to, package.
Okay.
Right on.
Yeah.
All right, last question. Where should investors start when looking for a new property management team? And does it vary on the type of property that they have?
Well, that's a good question. Property management team, we use a property management company called Secure Pay One, which does all of our management. But you can have success or failure, and I've seen it with a number of our clients that local companies really have to be managed. One of my friends and clients says that his job is to manage the property managers, and it's still a process for the property owners, even if they do hire a property manager.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Right on.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. Perfect.
Well, that concludes today's fire round. So that means there's one segment of the show left. You know what it's called?
Famous
All right, the famous four. These questions are the same questions we ask every guest every week, and we're going to throw them at you and see what you got to say. So number one, what is your favorite real estate-related book?
It would have to be the Book of Estimating Costs of Rehab, right?
Okay,
by,
Jay Scott.
Yeah, Jay Scott.
Nice.
I read that. I keep reading it because it's my belief that you never get that 100% right. And if you keep going back and educating yourself, and whether it's through books or your local RIA or wherever that doesn't charge you $50,000 to go to the
BiggerPockets.
and BiggerPockets, of course, right?
Excuse my cough. I'm sorry.
You got that cold.
You can always learn more, right? I mean, if you're not learning more, you're dying. I mean, you got to continue to build that knowledge base. So.
Cool. And people can pick up a copy of that book along with the book on flipping houses at www.biggerpockets.com/flippingbook or get it on Amazon.
There you go. All right. Next question. What about your favorite business book?
I happen to have that here. It's called The Golden Rules by Bob Bowman. It's new book out, right? Bob Bowman is Michael Phelps' coach.
Oh, cool.
Swimming coach. Yeah, I was a swimmer.
Swim coach. Okay.
Swim coach, right.
Thank you for clarifying.
And, Bob Bowman. And he talks about the 10 steps to whether it's in your business, in your work, in your athletic endeavors, what you need to do in order to be successful. So, good book. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome. What about hobbies? What do you do for fun?
Golf. I like to go watch my kids play soccer, and whether it's high school or college, they play in both.
Nice.
And those are. And flipping houses is kind of a hobby too, right?
There you go.
Go do that a lot. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. My last question of the day. What do you believe sets apart successful real estate investors from those who give up, fail, or never get started?
And a lot of your guests say this, but it really is just perseverance and focus. In my career, I've always had a belief that people, passion, and product really drive your business. My 3 Ps, right? There's I think a TV show that talks about process, but mine is people and process and product. And so, but staying passionate is also just really, really important. And knowing that what you're doing is valuable not just to yourself but to other people, and just persistence. Just keep going out there, finding the deals, and if you don't find them, keep at it. Persistence for sure.
Right on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, before we let you go, where can people find out more about you? Tell us the name of your company, anything you want to share.
Sure. Name of the business is RTO Property with a Y. Bill at RTO Property is an email address. You can find me on LinkedIn and at BiggerPockets. That's RTOproperty.com.
Awesome. Well, Bill, thank you so much for taking the time to enlighten us, share a little bit about your business and yourself, and we definitely appreciate it. So thanks for coming on board.
All right. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for the time.
Yep. Thank you. We'll
Sure.
stay around.
All right, guys, that was Bill Powers. Big thanks to Bill. That was great, man.
Yeah,
a lot of cool info, and he's so
a good
legit.
guy. Yeah, he does it the right way. I mean, if more investors ran their business the way he did or he does, I think we'd have a lot less people
Bad
angry.
press.
Yeah, bad press. People. I mean, because rightfully, people have a right to be irritated and angry at predatory investors. So, do it right, know the law, go study Dodd-Frank, talk to a lawyer. But definitely look into lease options. And of course, if you want to know more about lease options, there's an entire chapter in the book on investing in real estate with no loan money down, all on that topic.
Of course, it was coming.
I know. I didn't plug it in the show.
Where would they get that?
BiggerPockets.com/no money.
Nice. And to Brandon's point on predatory investors, don't be one. Seriously, like the word gets out there. People find out that you're predatory, whether it be that or, you go and you do crappy jobs on flips and trying to turn over, garbage properties to people. It makes everybody look bad. And by the way, people get really bad reputations in their markets and they quickly go out of business. So, don't be cheap. Don't take advantage of people. Run your business the right way, because that's the way to build a sustainable enterprise.
That's very true. Wise words from Joshua Dork in.
All right. Leave it to my man-child co-host to,
Do you like my cackle, by the way? That was my witch cackle. That's my witch cackle.
You're ridiculous.
All right, let's get out of here.
I feel bad for the people who put up with you.
I know. I feel bad.
Heather,
for you
I'm
too.
sorry.
Yeah, she's sorry too. It's a rough life.
Yeah. All right, guys. We'll see you next time. Jump on the forums, biggerpockets.com/forums. Link up with guys like Bill and create your account today on our site. We'll look forward to talking to you next week. I'm Josh Dorkin, signing off.
You're listening to Bigger Pockets Radio, simplifying real estate for investors large and small. If you're here looking to learn about real estate investing without all the hype, you're in the right place. Be sure to join the millions of others who have benefited from BiggerPockets.com, your home for real estate investing online.